All right, should be live streaming on our YouTube account. Don't think we get a lot of hits on this one, but we'll keep it up for those who are interested or who'd like to watch in the past. Philip, let me make sure you can share screens too, as you probably can. I think you should be able to. Do you want to try? All right, great. And I'll say, why don't we give it one more minute and then we'll get our party started. Hope I don't know if you're okay putting, I know I think you're going to share some of the documents, but putting it in full screen mode just to make it easier for folks on YouTube and stuff to see too. Thank you, sir. Well, I think we're about a minute in. We may have a few more folks join. Lovely to see some familiar faces. Thanks again for joining us. I did want to take a moment and introduce Philip, who is one of, we're very fortunate to have working with us. He's a Office of the Governor, DSS, Yale Tobin Center Fellow. We've been fortunate to have a number of fellows over the years. We're more formalizing fellows in this year, and Philip is, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead a little bit there, but comes with a ton of experience, including with a lot of technical background, extremely knowledgeable, and has been started in just a month ago, really, and kind of end of July, kind of started, but really beginning of August, and has been helping Susan, myself, and the team start to really try to pull this together in terms of adding. We're fortunate to add him as a very skilled member. And Philip, I don't know if you want to say hello or introduce yourself anymore before we get started. You're on mute.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here today. Brad has told me a lot about the work you've all been doing so far, and it's been awesome trying to sort of support him and Susan getting this moving along. By way of background, I'm a recent grad of the Harvard Kennedy School, worked in healthcare consulting for the DoD and the VA, a couple of healthcare IT implementation stuff, and served in the US Navy and Army as well. So super passionate about healthcare and IT, and ready to help Brad and Susan wherever they need to move this along. So looking forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Philip. Again, super lucky, as you can tell by Philip's background, just really knowledgeable in this space, and we're very fortunate to have him working with us. Susan, anything you want to add at the top?
No, just simply very glad to have Philip joining us. I think it's going to accelerate some of the work. So we've been a little shorthanded, and Philip really has just jumped in, headlong, and is really helping us to move some of this forward. So I'm very excited to be working with Philip on this.
Great. And I think, Susan, you probably take it away a little bit. You want to go to the next slide, I think. From here, or Philip, are you going to? I can't actually remember. I'll pass it to one of you.
I can tee up and then I'll lateral to Philip. And I do apologize if in the background you're hearing, it sounds like outside they're doing some wood chipping or something. So I don't know if you can hear, but it is definitely out there. I think as we've talked about, we were hoping to move forward with some of the lower hanging fruit. And one of the pieces had to do with providing some of the HEDIS measures available in a static format. So we've been working with the various ASOs on identifying some of the measures. They were very responsive and provided us some of the needed visualizations, and we've been busily, I think I started with some of it, and Philip has taken on the reins of it to repackage and to pull it together for us to present to y'all in very short order. So we do have what I think is kind of the penultimate versions of them that we can share today. So both for we'll start with the medical, but we also have it for the behavioral health ASO data as well. Philip, I'll lateral to you.
All right, thanks, Susan. So this is just a mock-up of the HADES measures we received from CHNCT, 11 in total. And what we did is just move them from the PowerPoint onto the doc to which this is how it's going to end up on the dashboard. So this is just a snapshot of how we've worked with it. And basically, we've added some context to the data and then made sure that what we have here will be sort of easily understood by even the layperson who wants to sort of access the information. It is still a work in progress. What is next in terms of this particular doc is to have probably just a cover page and then a table of content, which will be linkable to make it easier for anyone to just dive into the data when they click on it. So in the next couple of days, hopefully by end of this week, I should be done with this part and then complete the HADES measures for that we got from CHNCT, basically. Yeah.
Great. And then just quickly note that obviously the CHN data, then we have some data from Beacon and as well as from our Medicare, so behavioral health, dental, and medical measures, at least as a starting point.
So I don't know if we have any questions, and if not, we can then move to. Okay, and so similarly with the behavioral health HEDIS measures, very similar. I think we're a little bit slightly further with that, having a cover page and table of content. Don't know if we've made it linkable, but that's the intention, is at least with the static ones, to make it a little bit easier for folks to get to the particular measures of interest, as well as you saw with the previous version, is to try to provide more information in terms of what the measure tells you, how to understand it, and you'll see with some of the discussion later today, we're trying to do something similar with some of the other dashboards so that folks have maximal information to engage these data.
Great. Any questions or comments? I know it may be a little hard to see as we're scrolling through here. I think we're getting pretty close to being able to post these. I don't know if Susan or Phil want to say a time frame where we think we'll be up and we can send them to folks to take a look.
Yeah, I think it's just a couple of internal tweaks, just making sure that all the requisite folks on leadership have been apprised and have had a chance to fully vet. But once we get that green light, it's pretty quick for IT to post. They can usually do it within the same day. So I'm hopeful within the next week or two, we should be able to have these up and ready.
Great. Any questions? Again, really HEDIS focused measures here. So go ahead,
this is Bonnie. Did we say that we'll send this document that's on the screen out to this group too?
Once we've kind of gotten it signed off on, yes, that we'll plan on notifying you as soon as we actually kind of can post it. You guys always provide us the most feedback on things. So once we're actually able to do that, that's the plan.
Brad, this is Nicole. Once we post the static data, how often will we update them?
I think right now we're planning on doing yearly updates, and that's kind of where it stands at the moment. I think ideally we would do it more frequently, but because of how we have to, right now we're, as just a reminder, the process for obtaining this is asking the administrative service organizations to run this data for us. We're not doing this internal to DSS. Ultimately, I think that is our goal, but there's a lot of process steps in order to actually be able to do that on the DSS side. And so for the time being, I think, and Susan, correct me here, but I think we're going to plan on yearly updates to this data.
Yeah, at this juncture, the intention is to do this yearly. I think when we're able to produce this in a dynamic way, then that would allow us to be more flexible, similar to what we do with the People Serve dashboard. But the annual at this point is what we're striving to do.
I
So
think
Brad,
it's really terrific. Oh, you go, Ann. Sorry.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead. I just
I
had.
think it's really terrific.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think it is terrific that we have the already produced measures that being shared in this way. So I think it's a really terrific advance, and I do think kind of harkens back to our earliest meetings together on this board, and so I think it's really great for thinking about the final audiences. I do think the methodology sections that I saw beneath each of the tables is an opportunity to be really helpful for folks to understand that this is based on claims information and how and what sort of impacts the rates, especially because that's where there's often the takeaway for, if X, Y, and Z happens, the rates would go up, sort of the health benefit of what's being tracked and what makes it action oriented.
Thanks, Bonnie.
So Suzanne, I had a question, but I think it's kind of answered in this particular where it stopped here. Are we looking at Connecticut versus, national or New England? So I'm assuming that's what I'm looking here with the blue lines. So, all of these performance right on HEDIS measures, it's just like, how is our Medicaid population doing as compared to kind of the general population? And is there an opportunity for that? Is that something for the future? Are we really providing more services and better support for this at-risk population than is readily available?
Yeah, and definitely wanted when possible, including that information in this. So I don't think we are for everything, but especially because there is a lot of national comparison when the HEDIS measured, that is relatively available. So not always the case for dental, for example, because not every state has a dental program, but for a lot of our behavioral health and medical historical medical measures, those are benchmarked. Now, I know when we had initially laid out a plan for measurement in the transparency board work, some of those measures will not be things that we can easily benchmark. That will really be more benchmarking against ourselves over time. For example, we may say, if we were doing a patient-reported experience or outcome measure, we may not be able to do that. But I think for these are very much easily comparable. I think the only thing you might ask, like, what about commercial rates, et cetera? That can be a little bit more challenging for comparison purposes. With that said, I think when those are available too, we may try to include those. I think that would be an advanced step for us at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Brad, just another comment, and this is sort of only a partially ripened comment at this time, but I'm thinking about how several of these HEDIS measures address potentially stigmatized conditions, so substance use, mental health, and I think we'll probably want to think particularly about how we present those, right? Because looking at something like, how rates of alcohol dependence varies by race and ethnicity, I think we'll need to get into some nuanced discussion around what does that actually mean? How do we diagnose alcohol use disorder? How does that show up in claims data? So I'm sort of echoing Bonnie's comment. I think we'll need to really use this as a tool to educate and ideally destigmatize some of these conditions, which are rather stigmatized at this time.
Yeah, I think important point, and definitely, and I think something that's an issue at large, especially the stigmatization of mental health and substance use disorder. Bonnie?
Just following up on what Benjamin just said, I think that the piece on making sure that it's clear that it's data that comes from claims when people are accessing the system is important for every measure, and especially for the ethnicity, how pointing out what is likely already known about the disparity, and that many might be reflecting access issues, let's say.
Thanks, Brian. I see Karen.
I was just going to echo that kind of context was part of the principles we developed early on in this process, that really, as a rule, HES never publishes disparities data of any kind, whether or not there's stigma associated, without some kind of context and explanation, because it's just too easy to feed into conversations that argue that race is biological or that people are responsible for the symptoms of their own oppression, right? So I would just reiterate what other folks said about the need for some context.
And potentially, Karen, we may reach out to you and your team just to see if you have any things that may be helpful, because I think that is a really important part here, and could potentially use some informal guidance expertise on and making sure we can do that effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to talk about that.
Thanks.
Brother, I'll talk about this one.
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah, so these are the measures that were proposed by the board for phase 1. And I think as of now, we do have all these data available, with the exception of what has been indicated in red, the state share of Medicaid expenses. I think Susan has showed a couple of these in past sessions. I can show what we have right now and what we've added to it so far. Okay. So these are all Susan had a couple of months ago, what she got from finance. And I'll just go straight to what has been added on recently, which is the Medicaid administrative expense percentage, adjusted and unadjusted. And then Medicaid as a share of the state budget. So we recently got this from finance, and then we quickly put it in there. So we only have one metric that is outstanding, as I pointed out earlier, but it is not fully ready yet. I think something that Susan has brought up in the past is trying to provide definitions and context on the data itself. Compared to what you saw in the HEDIS measure, we don't have a lot of data on explanation of the data, to what they mean and where we got the data from. So next steps is to sort of align on definitions for the data we have in here. What does unadjusted mean? What does adjusted administrative expense means? So currently we are trying to have conversations with finance to sort of get it clear, for them to get the approval on the definition for the data that is in here. And then we can move forward with this data. Okay, there's a couple of the definitions that we also need to agree on as well. It is all pending approval by finance. And we have discussions lined up with them to sort of get their blessings on them before we can add them to the doc I showed previously. Yeah. Go back to the slide again. Okay. Okay. I don't know if there are any questions, concerns with these as well.
And I think as we we'll get closer to having this, as we're going to be working closely with our finance team to finalize the details on this and hopefully expand the scope as well.
Okay. So moving on to this the data dictionary. I think this coming up with this following up from the previous slide, ongoing discussions with finance on the data dictionary, so we could sort of get this in there to provide context for whoever is reading reading the measures to understand it better. Susan, I think this.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think I teased this a couple of meetings ago, and I just wanted to give folks an update. We're still doing the beta testing on this, just to make sure that everyone is up to date on what the phase 2 is about. We were taking the existing PeopleServe Dash, but adding a tab that will allow for trend data. So that will allow folks to choose multiple time spans. So presently, you're able to choose one time period, and the data will obviously adjust according to that. The trend version that we're working on will allow you, as you can kind of see from the graphic from the visualization here, will allow you to choose multiple timeframes. So let's say I want 2015, 2018, and I want to see 2020. You can click those and the data will adjust and show those particular periods. So we're excited to add that to allow folks to do a little bit more idiosyncratic kind of self-serving on the data. But obviously, anytime we add those kinds of dimensions, there are other, kind of data integrity and quality and protection issues that we always need to attend to. So it's taken us a little bit longer to do some of the beta testing, but I just wanted to let folks know we're still working on it. It is an intended update that we want to make available, we're looking at some other updates as well, some other ideas to enhance some other data points to also include, but the phase 2 trend piece is still in development. Karen?
I just wondered if there was any progress on including churn in this report too. Any kind of reporting on disenrollment codes or churn?
No, we're working on better understanding churn in general. So that's a project that I have one of my research analysts working on, and we are currently working with our IT folks on a poll. So I don't feel we're in a place to necessarily present on that until we can play with it and do some mock-ups. So there is work on it, but I don't have an ETA on that. But we are working with folks specifically on a data poll related to churn so that we can start to present that information.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So anything else? Okay.
Sorry, go back.
No, I was just wanting to make sure if there's any other lingering questions on the dashboard. Seeing none, I think we can move forward, Philip.
Awesome. So I get in the beginning, Susan said that we're trying to sort of tackle the low-hanging fruits, which was the HEDIS measures, but overall, there are tons of metrics or benchmarks that we need to sort of pull up for phase 1 of the project. So this is like a step back to sort of map out where the data exists, both within DSS, and if not external, whether it's with the ASOs or with sister agencies like DPH. So this is what we've been working with in the past couple of months. Like, we tease out, let me make this bigger. Okay. So for each measure that we are supposed to sort of report out there, trying to sort of dig into the weeds, where is it, which entity has it, which storage system, and what what is the ease of access to it? Whether it is, we could just pull it out, but we need an extra expertise to sort of put the data together, or we might need some sort of agreement with an agency to have access to their data. So for the three types of measures, the outcome, the process, and the member experience satisfaction, we're doing data mapping for each of them to know what the data is and to know which one to prioritize outside the HIDIS measures in terms of ease of getting access to the data. So just showing you what we've been working on so far.
So big shout out to Philip for really helping map this. It's a fair, as you can see, and I know as many of you were part of the group, or most of you were part of the group, you know, a year ago, figuring out what we wanted to include, and actually identifying where all of these things sit is quite a task in itself, given even internally at DSS, all the variable data systems that we have. So Philip's really taken this on and really helped start sorting out how we might go about presenting more of this out publicly. Sorry, Susan, I wasn't sure. Go ahead and add some more if you wanted to.
No, I think you capsuled that. I think this is I'm very excited. Philip picked up this particular piece of work. I had a staff person kind of assigned to this, but I only have 2 staff folks, so it's a pretty big lift, and so I'm very excited that Philip's able to kind of move this forward, and again allowing us to kind of see what's are those data pieces that we potentially can accelerate. So I think this will help us to figure out what are some of the updates that we can do either to the people served dash, or at least potentially through some static dashboarding in the not too distant future.
Thank you. Any questions, concerns on that? Okay, moving on.
So I think we're kind of wrapping up pretty, giving everyone a lot of time back today. And I think we'll have some of this, especially the quality measure stuff ready, at least preliminarily. And I think what we'll do is probably try to get something up there and then circle around quickly on modifications and look for feedback. I think Karen, obviously, as one of our advisors and council members here, we may ask for some input on how to frame it potentially more effectively. Otherwise, I think we don't have another meeting until the end of November. At this point, 2 months away, and I suspect we'll have some more. We give Philip a little bit more time under his belt. He will probably be helping us move some of this forward a little bit more, despite some of our internal and even external challenges to doing so. But any final thoughts from others? Anything anyone wants to share? Concerns, questions, any of the above? Go ahead, Bonnie.
This is Bonnie. Just a quick request or offer that if there are work groups meeting, if we can kind of recirculate when those are happening, I'd be open to participating in more in the different work groups again too. If there's opportunities to be reviewing, in between now and the November meeting.
We have not had any other work groups as of now. Really, anything that we're ready to get out there, we will send to you. It's just internal reviews can take a while to make sure everything is vetted. There are multiple sign-offs that often have to occur, and sometimes we have data that needs to be reviewed several times before we actually are ready to release it, and that can be quite time consuming depending on how many people need to review it. So appreciate it. Definitely, we welcome your feedback, and as soon as we can get it to you, we will, and ask for your thoughts. Well, I think seeing no other, I think we can wrap up and give everyone back time as we have been able to recently. Again, we greatly, I think our next steps are really kind of finalizing the quality measure, which Philip has done, Susan have done a fantastic job of kind of getting us there. And then obviously the finalizing that additional cost data and definitions, which I think we're also very close on. And then obviously the people served updates, which I think will be, I think we're all very excited about, and I know was a request for many of you once we reviewed that together. So I will, I think, pass it to Susan and Philip, see if there's any other comments. Otherwise, we'll sign off.
No, good. Just always happy to see everyone, and look forward to continuing the work on this important project.
Yeah, and thanks again, everyone, for their effort and time and willingness. We greatly appreciate it and greatly benefit from your continued, poking and pushing of us. So thank you. All right, we'll see you guys soon, and hopefully we'll have an email out to you in the next couple of weeks with some things to review. All right.
Thanks so much.